Welcome to my presentation. My name is Aswad, and my presentation is Poverty in Contemporary Britain. Aims: to better understand what poverty is as well as how it continuously influences living in modern Britain. Objectives: by the end of this lesson, you should be able to define poverty in terms of relative and absolute poverty, explain how poverty has changed in Britain over time, analyze different methods of measuring poverty. Definitions of poverty. Poverty is the lack of financial means that result in individuals, families, or communities being unable to exist or procure basic essentials for better living. It is a lack of usual or socially acceptable finances and material possession. Poverty goes beyond monetary-based definitions to include dimensions of well-being such as education, health, and quality of life. Absolute poverty: the lack of financial means to meet minimum essential needs for survival, such as food, clothing, and shelter. Poverty below a set line of requirements to access minimum needs for survival based on a fixed income threshold that is adjusted for inflation and does not change over time across different societies. In the UK, it is less than 60% of the median income from 2010 to 2011, adjusted for inflation. More than 6 million people were living in very deep poverty with incomes that are significantly below the poverty line in 2022 to 2023. A recorded 18% of the population currently live in absolute poverty after housing. Relative poverty: conditions where individuals or households earn significantly less than the societal average. Measures the income inequality people meet basic needs but fail to maintain typical living standards in their society, resulting in exclusion. In the UK, a household is in relative poverty have income of below 60% of the median income before housing costs. Households in relative poverty, if it is 60% after accounting for housing costs, rent, and mortgage. 4.2% children, means 29% of the children population, were in relative poverty after housing in 2022. Approximately 22% of working age adults were living in poverty after housing costs in recent years. Roughly 18% of the pensioners live in relative poverty after housing costs as of 2022. Geographically, London and East London have the highest, and Southeast England have the lowest rate of poverty. How poverty has changed in Britain. Medieval period between 500 and 1500 AD. People lived an agrarian life with 80 to 90% of the population living a subsistence farming existence. Land was owned on the feudal system. Landlords owned the land and peasants worked the land. The church provided charity in order to alleviate poverty. Tudor Stuart period between 1600 and 1700. After the dissolution of monasteries by King Henry VIII, Britain plunged into great unemployment and poverty. The Poor Laws of 1601 during Queen Elizabeth's reign introduced local taxation for poor relief. Parishes funded houses for those who could not work, workhouses for those who were able-bodied, and correctional houses for those who were idle and vagrant. Industrial Revolution of 1800 to 1900. Urbanization resulted in mass migration to the cities, resulting in overcrowding. The Poor Law Amendment of 1834 created workhouses for with severe condition. It also provided housing, clothing, food, education in return for work. London population rose from 1 to 2.3 million between 1801 to 1851, with poor, inhumane living conditions. Lack of proper sanitation resulted in disease and in epidemics. 1900, early 1900 to early 20th century. Findings between 1886 and 1903 identify that 30% of the city population lived below the poverty line. Age factor, the youngest being at risk. It also concluded that poverty led to illness and death. Liberal reforms of 1906 to 1914 ensured the provision of free schools, meals, and other policies targeting the young, old, and unemployed. Post-war period, the warfare period. The warfare period was established in the early 1900s to address poverty based on the Beveridge Report. Labour Party adopted the Beveridge proposal after 1945 general election and implemented several policies to tackle poverty. Economic challenges of the 1970 resulted in at least 7.5 million workers earning less than £15 a week, and 2% of the citizens lived in unfit housing. Poverty in current Britain. As of 2024, 18% of the UK population, which is 12% people, and 3.6 million children, which is 25% of the children population, live in absolute poverty. Vulnerable groups include ethnic minorities, the elderly, unemployed, underemployed, children in single parent home, and people of Pakistani and Bangladesh backgrounds. 37% of the adults in workless families live in relative poverty before housing costs. 7.2 million, which is 11%, lived in food insecure household as of 2022 and 2023. 44% of social renters live in relative poverty, and 10% homeowners with mortgage increased material deprivation among pensioners from 6% to 8% between 2019 and 2023. 16% of the pensioners live in relative poverty, increased material deprivation, and 1%, 1 million pensioners unable to afford essentials. Key driving factors to poverty: housing costs, unemployment, and inflation. Analyzing measurements of poverty. The measurement: household below average income. Measures description measures poverty as a percentage of household with income below 60% median threshold. Strength captures relative poverty and inequality. Annual updates reflect current trends. Limitations exclude non-monetary factors. Example: used by DWP to assess income distribution. The next one is minimum standard income. Description: income required for socially acceptable living. Strength: considers societal expectations. Limitations: subjective consensus can change over time. Examples used to evaluate if households meet acceptable living standards. Next one is material deprivation. Description: measures access to essential goods and services. Strengths: reflects actual living conditions. Weaknesses: does not capture income or saving, limited due to subjective reporting. Examples: combined with income data to assess child poverty and other vulnerable groups. Third, the other one is absolute low income. Description: measures income below a fixed threshold. Strengths: tracks long-term poverty. Weaknesses: ignores changes in societal norms. Examples: measures poverty reduction with time using historical trends. The last one, relative income, measures below 60% of the median income. Strength: tracks inequality and social exclusion. Weaknesses: volatile during economic downturns. Example: used by policymakers to evaluate welfare reforms impact and access economic inequality. Thank you for attending.